Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners public hearing. There's two scheduled here at 3 p.m., but we're going to start with Public Health and Social Services item regarding the Housing and Urban Development 2020 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, or CAPER. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept and consider public comment on the 2020 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. This is a hybrid public hearing. Those wishing to testify have joined in person, by Zoom, emailed in comment, or mailed in comment. If you wish to testify, please visit Thurston County homepage online, select announcements of public hearings on the left-hand side. The information to join this public hearing remotely has been posted there. If you do not wish to testify but would like to listen and follow along, please watch the live stream through the Thurston County YouTube channel to help us manage attendance. Jacinda Stelchis, Affordable Housing Coordinator, will provide information on the topic. I will read names on the sign-up sheet, assuming those on Zoom wish to testify. After the folks in the boardroom have testified, we will read your name aloud and ask whether you wish to give testimony. You will have 4 minutes to testify. Time may not be given to another person. When you are called on, please state your name and address or area of the county in which you reside for the record. Public hearing is now open. Jacinda will present background information of the proposed amendment, written comments submitted, if any, and provide any additional information requested by the board. Good afternoon, Jacinda.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jacinda Stelchis with Public Health and Social Services. I'm Affordable Housing Program Coordinator, and today we are asking that after the hearing is held, that you all close the hearing and we are able to submit our report, the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. This is a report that is required annually from HUD and summarizes our accomplishments that were made between the time period of September 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2021, which is our program year 2020 with HUD. And in the report, that summarizes our Community Development Block Grant and our Home Investment Partnerships Program funding, and again, what was accomplished with those funds. I am not aware of any public comments that have been submitted, in writing to date. And I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up.
Any questions for Jacinda before we open up to public testimony?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. And first we have John Pettit, and on deck is Terry Ballard.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is John Pettit. I live out in East Olympia. I can appreciate that you have annual reports that you need to file with the upper departments and upper levels of government. I actually find that in this particular hearing, it's really nice that we have no documentation regarding anything to do with the report. We have no documentations or any type of slide presentations to actually have the public actually have any particular knowledge on the report. And so it's kind of like a rubber stamp process. You don't need public comment on it. You don't need to give them any information. I'm not sure what I would comment on. I do like to see some benefits coming from some of the HUD services that are available, but as of right now, if you saw what I've seen right here in this public hearing in the presentation, we have nothing. So I'd like to tell you, well, approve that report and send it on, but I can't tell you anything because quite honestly, the county has not provided any actual information on a real public basis and made it available even here at the hearing for anyone to make a comment. Thank you.
Terry Ballard.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Terry Ballard, and I am commenting on the Veteran Fund. As of September, okay, there's still 942,000 end of September. There's still 942,000 on your actual budget here Okay.
Commissioner, does not relate to the public hearing, if I may.
Do you have comment regarding the consolidated report that we're discussing at this public hearing, sir?
The CAFR report?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, I can go there. Okay. Last year's CAFR report, right here, okay, had a balance of 888,000 carried over into 2021.
No, that's not, sir, that's not the public hearing. The public hearing is a consolidated contract with HUD.
2021. I just read off the 2021 budget.
Capper?
It's not a
Here's a
CAFR.
CAFR report for last year. I don't have one for December 31st of this year.
Go ahead and give your testimony, sir.
Okay, thank you. You don't need more money into the Veterans Fund. You don't. Okay, you can't spend what you got. You're trying to spend what you got. Okay, you're using this fund illegally for like a building. Okay, that atrium building. Okay, that's how you came up with the calculation of that. You can't justify any spending any money out of this fund. Okay, and it's coming to the end where you're going to need more. That's what this says. I just got this still hot. You're going to need more. Why do you need more when you can't spend what you got? And when you got what you got, you spend it on something else, like the road fund. I mean, come on, guys, okay? I own 3 houses in Thurston County, okay? I'm taxed in Thurston County. I don't appreciate things being utilized for something else of a different color of money. I do not appreciate it at all, and neither would any other taxpayer coming in here. He's right. You didn't prepare for this meeting. You just wanted to check off the box, okay? Why are we checking off the box? We need to have careful consideration throughout the year. I've done budgets. I've done Army budgets, okay? Brigades, okay? I've done budgets like you wouldn't imagine. I'm a logistics guy, okay? The way you're doing this is just bringing it up, checking off the box, okay? And say, okay, we'll tax ourselves, okay? And we're getting exuberant salary to do this, okay? All I'm wondering is we need to get back to the basics. We need to spend the money on the funds that we give for taxes. We don't need it transferred over to one another. We don't need that, okay? If you feel that it needs to be transferred over like the road fund or the veterans fund, then we need to go less in that fund than more. And I'll leave that for my comment. And thank you for giving my time, Mr. Menzer, unlike your manager over there.
Thanks, sir. Okay, that was all the signups I had. Anyone else in the boardroom? No. I don't think we have anyone on
Nope.
Zoom. So anything the board needs to discuss before we close the hearing?
I don't believe so, sir.
Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I would make a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Call for the vote.
Commissioner Mejia,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer,
Aye. Motion carries. Public hearing is closed. And is there a desire to have a motion, take action?
That's the proposal from staff.
I would move to accept the 2020 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report and authorize the Department of Public Health and Social Services to submit the report to the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that motion?
No, sir.
Call for the vote. Hearing none.
Commissioner Mejia,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Jacinta and Tom. We're going to now move directly into the second hearing.
Different Zoom.
Zoom, so we'll just take
Do we need a motion to close this hearing?
we already did.
Got it.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners public hearing regarding the countywide home fund concept. It is 3:14 p.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. To my left is the Vice Chair, Commissioner Gary Edwards. To my right is Commissioner Carolina Mejia. To her right is the County Manager, Amir Chavez, and Assistant County Manager, Robin Campbell. We also have Clerk of the Board, Amy Davis. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept and consider public comment on the concept of a 0.1% sales tax to create a countywide home fund. This is a hybrid public hearing. Those wishing to testify have joined in person by Zoom, emailed in comment, or mailed in comment. If you wish to testify, please visit the Thurston County homepage online and select announcements of public hearings on the left-hand side. The information to join this public hearing remotely has been posted there. If you do not wish to testify but would like to listen and follow along, please watch the live stream through the Thurston County YouTube channel to help us manage attendance. Tom Webster from the Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention Program Manager and from our Public Health and Social Services Department will provide some background information on this topic. I will read names on a sign-up sheet in the boardroom. There aren't many people in the boardroom. It looks like most folks are participating virtually. So at that point, we will go one by one through the participants on Zoom and ask if you wish to provide testimony. You do not need to sign up in any way. You will have 3 minutes to testify. We're based on the number of participants today. Time may not be given to another person. When you are called on, please state your name and address for the record. This public hearing is now open. To begin with, Tom Webster will present background information of the proposed proposal. Any written comments submitted will be summarized, and any additional information requested by the board, and then we'll go to testimony. Tom, are you up there? I see a lot of squares.
Yeah.
I am.
Okay, there you are.
Good afternoon, commissioners. So a little background. In the 2020 legislative session, House Bill 1590 was passed, which states in part that a county legislative authority may impose, without a proposition approved by a majority of persons voting, a sales and use tax in accordance with the terms of this chapter. The rate of tax under this section may not exceed 0.1% of the selling price in the case of a sales tax, or a value of the article used in the case of a use tax. This legislation was then amended by House Bill 1070 in April 2021. The intent of the funds is to create affordable housing for county residents whose income is 60% or below of area median income. The legislation requires that a minimum of 60% of the funds collected be used to, 1, construct or acquire affordable housing, which may include emergency, transitional, and supportive housing and new units of affordable housing within an existing structure. 2, to construct or acquire mental and behavioral health related facilities. 3, to acquire land for those two purposes. Or 4, to fund the operations and maintenance costs of new units of affordable housing and facilities where housing-related programs are provided. The housing and facilities may only be provided to the following population groups whose income is at or below 60% of the county median income. Those groups are people with disabilities or behavioral health disabilities, veterans, senior citizens, people who are homeless or at risk of being homeless, including families with children, unaccompanied homeless youth or young adults, or domestic violence survivors. The remaining funds must be used for the operation, delivery, or evaluation of behavioral health treatment programs and services or housing-related services. No more than 10% of the revenue may be used to supplant existing local funds. A county that acquires an affordable housing or behavioral health facility under the statute must provide an opportunity for 15% of the units at the facility to be provided to individuals who are living in or near the city in which the facility is located or have ties to that community, unless the county is unable to identify sufficient individuals that meet these criteria. This prioritization must not jeopardize federal funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Continuum of Care program. A county that imposes this tax must consult with any city before constructing or acquiring any of these facilities within the city limits. Since the announcement of this public hearing, we've been collecting comments submitted by the public regarding this issue. These comments have been primarily submitted via email. As of yesterday, Monday, November 22nd, I have recorded a receipt of 82 comments. Of those, 80 have indicated support for approval of a sales tax increase for affordable housing and homeless services, and 2 have expressed opposition. The majority of the comments have been from individuals, but there are a couple organizations that I wanted to mention have also provided letters of support, including the Regional Housing Council, the City of Olympia, the League of Women Voters of Thurston County, the Thurston Climate Action Team, Housing Authority of Thurston County, Habitat for Humanity, Homes First, Community Action Council of Lewis, Mason, and Thurston Counties, Catholic Community Services, Low Income Housing Institute, Thurston Housing Land Trust, Community Youth Services, Family Support Center of South Sound, and Home Ownership Center Northwest. I've also received about 7 or 8 other comments today, including from the City of Olympia, including from the City of Lacey, excuse me, that were not included in that count. And that ends my summary. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Tom before we get started? Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Tom, it might be useful to describe how this proposal fits into the previous action by the City of Olympia, in the sense that they passed a voter initiative.
Yes, that is correct. So the City of Olympia has approved this initiative, and so if the county imposed a tax, it would be imposed by those outside of the City of Olympia. It would be countywide outside of the City of Olympia. So City of Olympia has implemented this tax with a vote of their citizens. But so this would not apply, if the county took action, this would not apply to businesses or sales tax inside the City of Olympia, as those are already been implemented.
And one other thing that I've just heard, my understanding is that Olympia's home fund is generating, I think, $2.2 million a year, and if the county were to do the same, it would be, as I've heard, about 4.4 million on top of that. Is that?
Yes, that's the estimate that we received from the assistant county manager a few months ago, was approximately $4.5 million based on previous sales tax collections.
Okay. Okay, so with that, we can go. I don't have a sign-up sheet. Are there folks in the boardroom that wish to? Looks like, so hold on, Ms. Pettit. Looks like clerk of the board's got it. Okay, so I've got 3 in the boardroom, and then we'll go to Zoom. So hang on, everybody out there. We want to hear from everybody. First is James Simmons, followed by John Pettit.
Thank you, commissioners, for this opportunity. Many years ago, traveling on, pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry. Jim Simmons, live in Oldport, Northwest Olympia.
Thank you, sir.
Thurston County. Many years ago, traveling on Capitol Avenue downtown on the roadway, I saw emblazoned on the road an all-American city. And I thought, this is a great town. It reminded me of the Andy Hardy series starring Mickey Rooney. It's kind of a Mayberry, USA, and I thought, this is the town for me. And Andy would say, hey, gang, let's go down to the malt shop and gather around and come up with a new project to discuss, let's say, raising money for the library or money for the football team. I could say to you now, hey, commissioners, let's go down to Starbucks, which is, alas, the most socially conscious company, and talk about this. But hey, we can't. Windows are broken. It's a ruination down in downtown. Right now, we have an invasion. And I don't know if with this housing project, it'll all be just Thurston County. I think a few will slip through. Right now, in our southern border, 400,000 people are crossing the border every month from 100 different countries. They're not vetted. Afghans who believe in Sharia law, Haitian, continuing AIDS epidemic in that country, MS-13 gangs, unvaccinated people for COVID, fentanyl coming in from China. It's a disgrace. With legal immigration, which I believe in, there are a series of steps to learn about America, but these people won't know anything about it because they're coming in with no vetting. But you say, hey, Jim, look at all the money we're going to get from the feds and the county. But I say, look at Texas. They had the energy wind turbines that froze during the winter. People died, people suffered for weeks, families and kids, because they didn't have a secondary grid to replace anything that happened to the wind turbines. They were sucked in by the federal money to build those wind turbines. So my brother was in Massachusetts as a police officer. He's retired now in a nice little suburb town there.
20 seconds, sir.
Okay. Thought I had 4 minutes.
3 minutes.
And they had affordable housing. There was murder, mayhem, and it was disgusting. So although they'll pay for this housing, you're going to have more police, more EMS, medical, and lawsuits. It'll turn the Thurston County into a third world county. And I don't think we should put another tax on the middle class with already high gas prices, heating oil, and inflation going up. And I think this tax will impact young families most of all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, Judge, the clock has 4 minutes, so I will give you a verbal cue for 3 minutes.
You can't change it to 3.
There you go.
Okay, that's better. So people can track it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is John Pettit. I'm going to start by asking a simple question. Do you believe in democracy? You know, democracy is a special thing. It allows the people to vote. And people like to vote, especially if it has to do with a tax that's directly on them. Now, I know we have a wonderful full board of people that want to make a comment. We have a ton of people in Olympia that's all for pushing this agenda. People that aren't even going to be subject to the tax. People that should be voting should be the people that reside in the areas that would be subject to the tax. That's democracy. You know, it's a speaking of a real simple philosophy. Either you believe that the people should be able to decide for themselves, or you think that some elected official, which randomly changes every few years, should be the ones to make decisions. You want affordable housing? Don't increase the cost of living. That would be the start. You can't help but increase the cost of living if you're adding more tax to everything people buy. So I want to make more affordable housing, but I want to get some money put in my pocket. Right now, the city of Olympia uses some of that home fund for supporting some little mini housing, like Plum Street Village. They think that's a good value at $1,700 per month per little affordable shed for people to reside in. And that amounts to a situation that it is a cash cow. It's being utilized as a cash cow by the organizations, the nonprofits. Everybody that's showing up, and I'm not going to say anything negative in regards to Catholic communities, every organization wants to support something because they're going to help fill their own pocket. That's the problem. Let the people vote on it. Now, I did put out a petition. I didn't bring a copy and a list of all the comments I have that I've received because I posted one on Facebook, and I think maybe that helps contribute. But whenever you're taking a comment here, you really need to make sure that those comments are coming from the people that would be paying the tax, not just other people voting in a tax on top of it. So if you believe in democracy, I definitely... I'm not sure whether I still have this much time or
12
not.
seconds, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you. In closing, I'm going to put it this way. I agree, if we locate a lot of people in certain areas, it can be a problem, but we need to have some better solutions than just throwing more money at something. Throwing more money isn't going to solve a thing. So hopefully you will decide that the people are worthy to vote whether or not they get to have another tax put on them. Thank you.
We got Mr. Ballard's up.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I currently own one house in Olympia and 2 houses in Thurston County unincorporated. I don't think it's fair that Olympia should be exempted from this tax at all. Okay? You're telling me right now that Olympia has abided by everything that is in this tax. Okay? That's not true. Okay? As he mentioned, the $1,700 for a tiny home camp. How many people have left? Where's your social services department? Okay? Where's your providing jobs for them, providing them, I guess the 70% that have 70% of the homeless that have a drug addiction, where are they? How many people are homeless in your districts? Do you care about your districts? Okay? I can go on and on and on about what it takes to get somebody off the street. The last person that came up to your podium is still not living in his car. How many months are we at? Okay? Because he needs all this information, okay, that he doesn't have, okay, to quantify his existence, okay? Are you quantifying the same existence of these homeless people, okay? Are they enrolled into a social services program? No, you're just providing them with simply an income, a place to live, and food, okay? Hey, I ought to get an RV, rent out all my houses so I can become homeless, because there is no point of justification for a homeless person. You used mental health. Mental health was mentioned, okay? Guess what you used in the calculation to your atrium building down there? Mental health. And now you need more? So you need to supplement your mental health because you're using it someplace else? Give me a break, people, okay? I'm tired of being overtaxed, okay? How about utilities? How about we 50% of the people in Olympia are renters. How about we give them affordable housing as far as reducing their gas, reducing the tax for the landlord, okay, for his property, okay, reducing all this so we can make it affordable. But you're not doing that. You just rather tax it, and just like Mr. Pettit said, you just want the money in your pocket so you can use it for something else. And I have proof of that. I have fact of that, okay, of you doing this, okay? Mental health, a veterans fund, and a road fund being used to calculate an atrium building that we don't need, okay? What is going on here?
15 seconds, sir.
Okay, it is beyond my belief that Olympia is subject to everything that is in this program, okay? And they're abusing their own money, their own taxpayers, for something that you should provide already. That's what you call social services, and aren't you the Board of Health?
Please wrap her up, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the boardroom that didn't sign up? Okay, so now we go to Zoom, and I'm going to have the county manager walk us through.
Robin Kendall, help me. So I have a list in front of me. So I will call you based on the list that I have. And I apologize in advance if I butcher your first or last name.
County manager, can I ask, folks, we know that you can't see the timer. So I'm going to have the county manager just say 20 seconds. Yep. You know, you'll hear that right in the middle of your talking. That way you know kind of where you're at.
Yeah,
that's the best we can do with the format we have.
I'll give you a verbal cue, so thank you. Let me begin by give the floor to Mr. Mayor Komet. Mayor Komet, are you there?
I am. Thank you.
Please go ahead, sir.
All right, very good. Thank you. So again, I'm Tumwater Mayor Pete Komet, 555 Israel Road, Tumwater 98501. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here to testify on behalf of myself and the Tumwater City Council in favor of the 1% sales tax using your legislative authority as provided for in House Bill 1590 to help fund affordable housing in Thurston County. Tumwater has people struggling without a house to live in. While it's less visible than Olympia, we know from the annual point-in-time census and data from the Tumwater School District that homelessness is a growing issue in our community and has a detrimental impact on our children, youth, families, and vulnerable adults. A countywide sales tax will not only raise more money to address the issue, it will be more equitable. We know from surveys that people who are homeless in Tumwater are not just from Tumwater, but come from all parts of Thurston County, including unincorporated Thurston County. This measure will provide more local funds to match state and federal housing programs, leveraging these local funds to do even more. If you pass this measure, I ask that the funds it generates be dedicated to housing for people coming out of homelessness and to keep people from becoming homeless. We know that permanent supportive housing is the best way to help folks to integrate back into society and become productive members of our community. I'd also ask the county to use this opportunity to do several things. First of all, we need a list of all the private and public subsidized affordable housing units in Thurston County. I've done some preliminary research on that, and I know there are nearly 4,000 of those units throughout Thurston County, but we really don't have a central database that keeps track of these units. So I'm sure there are more, and I can't tell you how we can't tell how we're doing if we don't have a baseline to build from. Secondly, I'd ask you to take a fresh look at how all the public funds are being spent for housing and support services in Thurston County and make sure we're using these funds the most efficient way possible. And then thirdly, while I recognize the use of these particular funds is constrained by state law, there's definitely a need for permanent supportive housing. I'd ask the commission to also look at how we can create more what they call workforce housing for people who are working but can't afford market rate rents. So with that, again, thank you for the opportunity to testify on this important issue. And again, you have Tumwater's support, and I mean the full council unanimously agreed to support moving this ahead councilmatically with this measure. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have Councilmember Carolyn Cox.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Cox, and although I am a member of the Lacey City Council, as well as the Regional Housing Council, I am not representing either body today. The thoughts I will share are my own. I strongly urge you commissioners to enact the home fund tax. It is extremely rare that the state legislature entrusts city and county governments with the ability to impose a tax without a public referendum. The legislature's decision to do this in the case of homelessness recognizes the humanitarian crisis that we face. The Home Fund would help our cities and county government start to fill the two biggest gaps in addressing homelessness: paying for mental health services, and two, paying for permanent supportive housing. These two pieces are interdependent upon one another. Up to 40% of the revenue that the Home Fund would generate can be used for mental health services. There's a reason for that. We can buy, build, or rent spaces to house people, but without support, and for a significant number of the homeless population, that means mental health services. Most will not be successful. Many of them will end up on the street again, and that is an outcome that nobody wants. You are hearing differences of opinion already today about the Home Fund. If you enact it, I encourage you to set it up to succeed by establishing the Regional Housing Council as the body that will make recommendations to this board on how Home Fund revenue is to be spent. The Housing Council has already demonstrated through 2 funding cycles that it has the structure and the ability to make thoughtful and objective recommendations to you on other housing funds. Further, the county has a seat at the Housing Council table, as do the cities of Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and Yelm. So you can be assured that agreements hammered out at this table will have been well-researched, planned, and debated. In conclusion, the path that Thurston County has chosen in addressing homelessness is modeled after others that have successfully funded permanently supported housing and wraparound services. The home fund is the missing piece that will enable Thurston County
10 seconds, ma'am.
to make significant progress towards solving homelessness in Thurston County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Council Member Jim Cooper.
Thank you, Romero. Thank you, Chair Menser and members of the Board of County Commissioners. I'm Jim Cooper from the Olympia City Council, and I'm also the chair of your Regional Housing Council, or our Regional Housing Council in Thurston County. And I'm here representing both of those bodies, asking you to please implement a county-wide home fund. I want to really thank Romero Chavez and the housing staff at Thurston County. You have a stellar team, and I'm really excited about their leadership as we move towards what's starting to look more and more like a service delivery system for our unhoused neighbors. Every single day it gets better, and it's because of the staff team that you've put in place. So thank you. And thank you to Commissioner Mejia for serving as the vice chair of the Regional Housing Council. I and a lot of my friends just got off the campaign trail, and we knocked on doors all over the county, not just in Olympia. And there's one thing on everyone's mind, and it's housing and our neighbors who are houseless. You know, second to that would be the climate, and interestingly, our voters see the connection. All of them want us to, actually, I shouldn't say all, but every single person that I've talked to wants to take care of people who are out in the elements and wants to clean up the mess caused because so many people are living so close together without the necessary services. And I think that is the recipe for the community is asking you to implement the home fund countywide so that we can get caught up on the number of units we need to serve our most vulnerable. People who need services for a long time. And we're going to need to take care of as a community, as we've seen with Olympia's home fund. We can leverage a little bit of money to bring more money to the table from the state and federal government and private investors. And frankly, in the first 3 years of our home fund, we're nearly accomplishing the county-wide goal for permanent supportive housing, which is too small. And so the Regional Housing Council has established a stretch goal of an additional 150 units for permanent supportive housing countywide. And we are very hopeful that these funds will come to the table to help us leverage them into more money to build housing for our most vulnerable neighbors. Last week at the Chamber of Commerce, former Governor Christine Gregoire said that Challenge Seattle did polling statewide. They asked Washingtonians what was their largest priority.
15 seconds, sir.
They said homelessness, homelessness, homelessness. And so I'd just like you to lift up that priority for Thurston County and please pass the home fund countywide. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Anna Knudsen. Please unmute yourself.
There we go. Thank you. I'm Anna Knudsen, and my address is 4206 Amber Court in Southeast Olympia. I grew up in Olympia and am testifying in favor I have very strong support for Commission approving the countywide home fund. I grew up here in Olympia, left, came back, lived in Lacey, was in Seattle again, and have returned now to Olympia. And in considering the various problems facing our community and this potential solution that could be countywide, it has struck me that there are three key principles to keep in mind as to why the tax should be imposed countywide. First of all, the urgency of the problem is obviously very great. The problems associated with the unhoused and substance abuse and mental illness. So obviously, the more funds that are raised, the more quickly solutions can be put in place. The second principle that occurred to me is that really we are one region, and I grew up here in Olympia, but went to Lacey and Tumwater and the surrounding unincorporated county to avail myself of the benefits of the greater region. And I think that is true for most people who live here. We don't just stay in one particular community, but we all benefit, and we are one region and one community. And therefore, the solution needs to be regional as well. And then finally, as some other of the elected officials have mentioned previously, it's an issue of fairness. The fundraising or the tax should be generated not just by people when they're shopping in Olympia, but when we shop elsewhere throughout the region. So with that, thank you all for your public service and your hard work on the many challenges facing our county. And please, I've already submitted written comments and support of expansion fund, but please support it. Thank you.
Thank you, and I apologize, just a couple of chairs fell down. Ms. Erin Long.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Erin Long. I'm here for you to consider this important funding. To better understand why I'm here, I want to tell you a little bit about my personal story. In 2012, I lost a house, or I got homeless due to a house fire. I found myself homeless and ended up lost in my addiction. I came across Tent City called Camp Quixote. 4 months later, it transitioned in permanent housing called Quixote Village in Olympia, Washington on the west side. There I was able to get my life back together. I got clean off drugs. I addressed my mental health issues. My anxiety and paranoia subsided. I became a leader of my community. I was one of the original residents and lived at Quixote Village for the next 4 years. Permanent affordable housing with supportive services changed me and saved my life. Having affordable, stable housing is exactly what I needed to better my life. In 2017, I left my tiny home behind and gave someone else a chance to get off the streets. Today, I'm socially aware and have the empathy for the homelessness crisis and people who are still stuck in their addiction and the increase of behavioral health issues. I have overcame the challenges of my mental health issues and addiction because I had the chance to live in affordable housing. Today, I serve as Secretary of the Board, Quixote Communities, and work for Providence Medical Group as a community health worker. I serve the most poor and vulnerable of our community today. What I'm seeing on a daily basis is a huge increase of homeless folks struggling to get by, and COVID didn't help the situation. It only made things worse. People are lost on how to better their lives because of the stress living outdoors. It is so hard to get housing because of the simple fact there's not enough funding. I am the voice of the man holding the sign for help, and I am the voice of health equity. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I have the name of the person. 1 second, Ramiro.
Could you repeat your name, ma'am? Is it Erin?
It's Erin Long.
Erin Long.
Erin, A-R-I-N.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next, I have Ms. Barbara Buchan. Would you like to testify? If not, go ahead.
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Beth Dolio. Ms. Dolio would like to testify.
Yes, hello. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on the Home Fund. I was the sponsor of House Bill 1590, which allowed for a councilmanic vote on the Home Fund. Olympia addressing this crisis, it took them 3 years to bring it to the ballot. Given the significance of the crisis, I felt like it was really important for cities and counties to have an option to vote for it councilmanically and to do it more quickly to address the crisis. To date, Skagit, Jefferson, Whatcom, King, those counties have all passed this measure, along with East Wenatchee, Wenatchee, Spokane, Tacoma, Poulsbo, and Vancouver. Other communities or counties that are in the same situation as Thurston County at the moment include Snohomish County and Kitsap. So this is definitely something that is increasing funding and provides an ongoing local source of local funding that provides leverage for state and federal dollars. All of those communities who are doing it are going to be in a better position to leverage federal and state dollars if we don't do that here. And considering the depth of the need, I think we need to pass this measure as quickly as possible. Finally, I just wanted to note, it is a sales tax. It is regressive in its nature, but the legislature did pass the Working Families Tax Credit, which beginning in 2023 will refund low-income families. Actually, low-income families will get a check from Washington State to compensate them for the taxes, for the sales tax that they spend over the course of a year. So it does make the sales tax in the state starting in 2023 a lot less regressive. And finally, I just wanted to comment, it is not true that Olympia is exempt from this tax, as one of the testifiers earlier said. Olympia already pays the tax, so the county would simply be joining them in paying that as well. And I thank Mayor Komet and the Tumwater City Council for their full support of this. And I hope that the county will act on it quickly so that we can begin to collect funds as soon as possible. Thank you very much for offering this opportunity to the community to engage in this issue.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Carol Colburn.
No, I did not sign up to testify. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I am supportive of the tax, but
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Carol Goss. Moving on. Next, Ms. Carol Goss would like to testify.
Yes, just very briefly. Thank you for this opportunity. Every day we see so many people who are desperate, and we need the funds for more housing and more services that are addressing mental health needs as well as addiction needs. It's not going to get any better, and we've kicked the can down the road far too long. Please support this tax. Specifically, I'd like to hear from Gary Edwards because he represents my community just outside of Lacey, and I just would like to see some accountability. Thank you very much. Again, I vote for this tax. It's better now to deal with it than later. We're being penny smart and dollar foolish because a lot of people could get help and they are not. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I have Mr. Charles Shulin.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Charles Shulin. I reside at 2849 Lindell Road, Northeast Olympia, which is unincorporated Thurston County. I am here today to testify in favor of the Home Fund 1/10 of 1% tax. I want to express my appreciation too to Tumwater Mayor Pete Komet and also former Representative Beth Doglio for both of your efforts in the legislature and in Tumwater. And I agree with, basically, I just want to go on record saying I agree with just all the comments that those who have spoken in favor of this tax So I won't take up any more time, except this will help provide leverage, important leverage, and give us a head start when we are applying for federal and state funds for affordable housing and homeless services. Also, if and when this is passed, since Olympia has already been collecting this tax for the last 3 years or so, I would like to see close coordination between Olympia and the county in terms of planning and allocating the distribution of these dollars. So thank you very much, and appreciate the fact that this is before the commission.
Thank you, sir.
That concludes my.
Next, I have Ms. Charlotte Persons.
Okay, can I start my video?
Ms. Persons.
I'm trying to unmute.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Excellent. Okay, just a second. Sorry. Okay, I'm Charlotte Persons, and I live at 903 Glass Avenue Northeast in Olympia. I'm totally in support of the home fund tax because of its steady funding and the leverage that many people have already mentioned. But I have a couple of recommendations. First, right now the county spends at least $5 million annually on homeless services and shelter and on affordable housing. And I would like assurance from the county board that this existing funding will not be supplanted even by 10% as the law allows when the home fund tax begins bringing in revenues. And second, you've already had people talk about where you should consult in terms of deciding how to allocate these funds in terms of and I'd like to put in a suggestion, and that is that the large and small nonprofits who provide these services often feel they are not being consulted in how this money that's already coming in is being prioritized and spent. And I suggest that you also consult them. They are the ones on the ground that have a lot of information. Thank you.
Next, I have Mr. Craig Chance.
Thank you, commissioners and neighbors, commissioners for listening and neighbors for sharing your varied opinions and experiences. So again, my name is Craig Chance, and I'm the executive director of the Housing Authority of Thurston County, which is located at 1206 12th Avenue in Olympia. And as an individual, I live in unincorporated Thurston County. The Housing Authority serves approximately 2,000 households in our community with rental assistance. We own 537 housing units that are offered below market, and we offer supportive services. Often the image of somebody who is homeless is somebody who has a serious mental health issue, a chronic chemical addiction, and certainly that is the case with a number of people. They need that extra support. But we also live in a world where retail and service workers often make around $1,500 a month. The average Social Security check is about $1,500, although a lot of people earn a lot less on a Social Security, closer to $1,000. And in the course of a year, we assist about 5 dozen or more households who indeed are experiencing homelessness and are able to get them into stable housing. A great example recently was a gentleman in his 60s, and apparently his Social Security check wasn't enough to provide housing. And as you can imagine, again, if the average is $1,500 and many people are around $1,000, the average rent in our community is around $1,200. The math doesn't work. He'd been living in a tent, and we were finally able, with a housing voucher, a federal program, to get him into housing. And he said he was just resigned himself to the fact that now in retirement, until death sets him off of this earth, he'd be living in substandard housing or perhaps just that old tent. And I'll conclude with the other story of a woman we assisted around this time last year, a woman in her 50s, and she was on a disability Social Security check, and just again, not enough to cover rent, living out in Tumwater in a tent. And we were able to get her with voucher help into housing. And she said, "What's the best thing about my apartment?" Well, the answer to her rhetorical question was, "It has a toilet. I feel like a human being again." Those are the stories we'd like to repeat over and over and over again. And the challenge is often there just isn't enough voucher support, or there actually aren't enough homes to get people into, or apartments. And so the program being proposed, the home fund countywide, would create opportunities for more operating support, construction of more houses, so
15
that more
seconds, sir.
could find stable housing. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next, I have Mr. Daniel Caden.
Not testifying.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have Ms. Darian Lightfoot.
I'm just here to listen. Thank you. I'm in support of the tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Esther Cronenberg.
Yeah, hi. I'm basically in support of the tax. I know that there's a lot of vitriol against homeless people, like it's their fault. But we know that it's not their fault, that the economy, the way it is and the way the rental market is, has forced a lot of people whose wages have not gone up into homelessness. And as a former teacher, I know that providing an environment where people can feel safe and stable is the best thing for everyone. I also would like to echo what Charlotte Person said, and I think that the money that's you're going to be getting through this fund should be distributed with the voices of the nonprofits and the housing groups that serve these homeless people with their participation. And so thank you for your service.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Jill Severn. Ms. Severn, would you like to testify? Okay. Next, I have Ms. Judy Barden.
Judy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead now.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I want to support the proposed Thurston County Home Fund tax. This is a modest amount of money that would pay for very much needed affordable housing and related services, including mental health services. It is simply the right thing to do. Homelessness and the lack of affordable housing is an increasing problem in Thurston County and nationally. Lack of affordable housing is further fueling homelessness, as well as housing prices rise above the level that many people can afford. This is a regional Thurston County issue. It is not isolated to Olympia, even though Olympia has been shouldering the burden of providing these services for a long time. Approximately 9% of Lacey and Tumwater residents are at or below the federal poverty level. In Olympia, it's around 18%. A large proportion of our community are renters, and as rents rise, people are at risk of losing their housing. Olympia has a home fund that has been very successful. The home fund allows the city to leverage funding from federal and state governments, as well as nonprofit agencies to complete needed housing projects. An example of this is Merritt Manor, now called the Community Commons, with 60 new shelter beds and 60 new supportive housing unit apartments on Martin Way. The Home Fund also provided a grant of $1 million to the Family Support Center of South Sound for construction of 62 new units of housing for homeless children and their families, as well as survivors of domestic violence. And that unit will be on 7th Avenue in West Olympia. The tiny home village near the Japanese garden was also supported by the Home Fund. Please pass this new Thurston County Home Fund tax. It will provide desperately needed housing in our community. Thank you so much. And I reside in the west side of Olympia.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Julie Frick.
Julie. Hey, Julie.
Okay, thank you for letting us testify before this. My name's Julie Frick, and I live at 2310 Crest Ridge Drive, Northwest in Olympia. And I am a member of the League of Women Voters, and we strongly support this tax. If this will help just a few of our fellow citizens be able to be sheltered in this time of need, it will be well worth it. And I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Karen Tvet.
Thank you. I'm Karen Tweet. I'm the president of the local League of Women Voters. We appreciate this opportunity to testify in favor of this 0.1% sales tax to increase services to vulnerable people in our community. We believe your enacting this tax will allow us to more quickly address the housing objectives in the cross-jurisdictional Thurston Housing Action Plan. And while not a panacea, as demonstrated by the soon-to-be-opened Unity Commons, as has been mentioned by other folks, these funds can be a catalyst for projects that include the county as a leader and full partner. We appreciate your leadership, and please let us know how we can support your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Next, I have Mr. Keith Staley. Keith? Okay, moving on. Next, I have Pili Munoz. Pili, would like to provide testimony today? Just observing.
I am not testifying today, neither of me, and I'm in support of the tax.
Okay, thank you. Next, I have Ms. Kristen Smith.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity, and I'd like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving week. I am in support of this small tax. However, I would like to point out that it's ironic that we need another tax to solve what is a tax problem at the root. The reason why housing here is so unaffordable is because property taxes are extraordinarily high. Lacey, I reside in Lacey, by the way, Steamer Drive, Lacey. We just passed another property tax hike. Our property taxes on our house went up by $100 a month last year, and which is outrageous. Also, Washington has one of the highest gas taxes. When you're talking about people like us, we're on the cusp of being able to actually afford our house. Every single tax counts. The sales tax is nearly 10%. This is only going to add another 1%, 0.1%, right? So I'm okay with that. But yeah, sales tax is already at 9.5%, gas tax is high, property taxes is out of control, and we know a recession is coming this coming year. So, and what with inflation. So a lot of these people who have become homeless is because, in just this year, is because the taxes are out of control. My principal on our mortgage is as much as it was for an apartment, and then we have twice as much for taxes, for the property taxes. So please, when you're considering this tax, be very aware that you don't say the taxes are the solution to every problem, because in fact, they are the cause of many problems. I also want to make sure that when you implement this home fund, that there is transparency and accountability. And I second, third, and fourth, everybody saying that you do need to consult with the nonprofits who are on the ground in the boots, in the trenches. Thank you very much, and happy Thanksgiving again.
Thank you. Next, I have Mr. Larry Saiza.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Oh, great. I hadn't really
thought about speaking. I sent an email, but being I have the opportunity to pull some thoughts together, I'd like to share them with you. Briefly, I support the tax. It's the right thing to do. Olympia is 1/6 of the population is carrying a disproportionate burden for paying and without doubt carrying almost 100% of the location for homeless services. You can count the number of homeless shelter beds outside of the city on one hand and still have fingers left over. Where are the homeless from? In 2019, we knew 34% said their last address was Olympia. In 2020, we saw that the point-in-time survey showed that 61% came from within Thurston County. Well, the methodology changed, but we can take a pretty good estimate that at least 30% of the surveyed homeless hailed from the rest of the county. And they're not carrying their share. There's virtually no dollars that I was able to identify that came from Thurston County own source tax revenues. You have a lot of pass-throughs, a lot of dedicated revenue sources that the state has created that you have no other ability to use other than for home services, and you do use them. But in terms of own source revenues, not there. So this would be a big step forward for that. We need the state and federal government to do more to address the root causes of homelessness, such as income inequality, drug addiction, and mental health, and more. And as the county that hosts the state capitol, I believe we need to bring this issue home to our state legislative officials, some of them who may be on this call right now, because the resources are really there. The state is sitting on an unprecedented increase in revenues, and the forecasts are going up. We're not a poor state. And yet here we sit here, regardless of whether you think, what kind of services the homeless needs, I just can't see as a civil society how we could be okay with people sleeping in the mud. Sleeping in the mud without a roof over their head, maybe a tent, at a minimum, putting a roof over people's head and being off the ground is achievable. We can do this. We really can. And we should, as a humanitarian minimum, provide this basic human shelter. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can you state where you reside in the county, please?
Oh, yes, I'm in the city of Olympia, the Log Cabin Road.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Lisa Vatsky.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Lisa Vatsky. I am a Thurston County resident, and I live at 2640 81st Avenue Northeast, Washington, 98506. I'm here today wanting to urge you to vote for this important tool. As chair of the Olympia Home Fund Advisory Committee and as director of the Multifamily Housing and Community Facilities Division at the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, a statewide housing finance allocating agency, I can attest to the importance and critical need for local commitment, support, and investment to drive and impact local solutions that leverage state and federal resources to address the local affordable housing crisis that currently exists. The Olympia Home Fund stands ready to coordinate and collaborate to address our local housing needs, and this fund is an important part of the solution. Thank you for your leadership and support by implementing this important tool.
Thank you. Next, I have Mr. Lonnie Spikes.
Yes, good afternoon, commissioners. I am Lonnie Spikes. I live here in Lacey, 7052 Prism Street here in Horizon Point. So I just want to thank you all for your efforts on this. I just want to take some time to just give a perspective from a veteran's part. I represent Quixote Communities, and as my esteemed colleagues, Erin Long and Beth Doglio, I know I murdered her name, but said, I work with them a lot on the village, and many of the village provides permanent housing to homeless, those who are homeless, including many veterans. And as a veteran myself, I'm a military retiree. I am an E8 First Sergeant, and I not originally from Olympia. I'm from Detroit actually, and I came here to Olympia or to the Thurston County area in 2006 and been living here ever since. I have helped hundreds of veterans with employment into different public and private companies. And I say this because when I left the Army in 2006, we had the bare minimums of how to adjust back to civilian lifestyle, and particularly employment and particularly housing. So I committed myself to make sure that my fellow brothers and sisters and theys don't have to go through the same things that many other veterans have to go through. I like to say that I do believe in diversity. I think diversity is our strength. And I think I define diversity as we are a community, no matter what you live in, be it those who live in a mansion kind of environment, all the way to those who might be living as gentlemen before me, sleeping on the ground. And regardless of where you live, how you live, you're part of our community. And I believe that we hold a responsibility to reach out and help those
and other
we can help.
So I took on the Feds.
I am for this.
We're sitting on an unprecedented budget surplus in the state legislature.
I just want to thank everyone.
And the forecasts are up.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
And we have people sleeping in the mud.
Sir, Mr.
I don't care about wraparound services and all this
Ms. Larry Detsap, please mute yourself.
At a minimum, your humanitarian minimum.
Can you hear me?
Get them
please
off the ground.
mute yourself.
So that was my basic spiel. And then the data, they said, they come from the county. The data's there.
Larry.
Mr. Chavez, you can mute everybody, I think.
Yeah, give me a second. There's a lot of background. I may ask you if you are not speaking, please mute yourselves. That will help the communication here in the boardroom. I see a lot of windows. They have not muted yourself, so I will appreciate you can do that.
I'd like to give Mr. Spikes his last minute back because I didn't
Yeah,
hear what he
Mr.
said.
Spikes, you didn't have the chance to finalize your thoughts. You have 30 seconds.
Yes, I just wanted to say, as I pass through the camps myself, the homeless camps, I just want to reiterate that as a community, we are diverse. And regardless whether you live in a mansion or live on the ground, you're a part of the Thurston County community that I call my home. And I am proud to support any fund or bill or whatever to help my brothers, sisters, and theys who might find themselves out on the street. So thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have Ms. Madeleine Bishop.
Hi, I'm Madeleine Bishop, and I live in unincorporated Thurston at 9529 62nd Avenue Southeast. And I support this home fund tax. I think that I'm very, very happy to pay a penny on a $10 purchase to help the needy and people in my community. And I am asking all three commissioners to please vote yes on this and do not try to use it for political advantage, whether you're going to be with the anti-taxers or not. And I agree that our tax system has a lot of problems, and I suggest you support Representative Noel Frame, who is trying very hard to implement capital gains tax and to restructure it so that we have equity in our tax system. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Maureen Hill.
Hi. I didn't come prepared to speak to the issue. I did send a letter, but I appreciated hearing from Erin and her experience and how having a stable housing environment enabled her to deal with other issues and how much it has affected her life. I appreciate hearing from Beth about the history of, and appreciate her contribution to making this funding possible for the county. I have sent an email in support of this resolution. In order to, anybody who's tried to pencil building housing knows that without some public support, it doesn't pencil to make it affordable rent. So it does need some public contributions. And like Lisa said, projects are much more competitive. At the local projects, they'll be much more competitive if they can go to the state and federal funding sources with a local contribution. So thank you for your holding this hearing and possibility that this is going to pass. Like the previous speaker said, I hope it comes 3-0 in favor of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Mayor Cheryl Selby. Mayor.
So good afternoon, commissioners, and thank you for considering passing a countywide home fund by a vote of the board. On behalf of the Olympia City Council and a solid majority of our voters, I'm excited to lend our support and encourage you to pass a countywide home fund. We've seen the results of our own home fund that passed with over 60% support in 2018 and know that a countywide fund would make our efforts to address this crisis truly a regional effort. I want to emphasize that Olympia is already paying the extra 0.01% sales tax, so we'd be exempt from an additional countywide home tax, but I bet if we put it to the voters again, they would pass it. In creating our home fund, advocates hoped it would create 350 new units of permanent supportive housing in 10 years. I'm happy to report that we're now on pace to reach that goal well ahead of schedule, funding almost 250 units of supportive housing in 3 years. We were able to leverage our first 3 years of home fund revenue into $70 million in state and federal construction grants as a result. The Olympia Home Fund's success is due in large part to partnerships with yourselves and a regional housing council. Tax credits as well are a critical tool for financing housing for our lowest income households. Because of our ability to leverage our home fund dollars, we're looking to win 3 tax credit awards in a row for the first time in the county's history. All that new affordable housing came from Olympians investing just an extra dime for every $100 they spend on retail purchases. Imagine the impact we could have if everyone in the county made that commitment. A countywide home fund would generate $4.5 million in its first full year compared to Olympia's $2.3 million raised under the same authority. Put those together and it would be magic. I also want to say that we've got a recent statewide survey that was put on by the Challenge Seattle group that we spoke of earlier that former Governor Gregoire is leading. And their survey showed that 92% of voters statewide say homelessness and lack of affordable housing is the #1 issue and that local and state governments need to address it. They also noted that 62% of Washington voters say that homelessness is a statewide problem and lawmakers are responsible for addressing the issue with additional funding. There's additional statistics that I could go on, but they all point to the fact that voters will have your back if you pass a home fund for the county. As well as mentioned earlier, the state is sitting on a large surplus and they're looking at allocating one-time dollars for capital acquisition of existing hotels and multifamily units. The county will be poised perfectly to apply because they can show an existing dedicated revenue source for housing. So in closing, I want to acknowledge Aaron Long's comments, and they should speak to all of us, especially during this season of the year. And this, I want to note as well, and leave you with this, this is not a partisan issue. This is a human issue. And I really, really hope that you think long and hard about not supporting this. And I hope you do support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Next, I have Ms. Meg Martin.
Hello, my name is Meg Martin, and I am the Executive Director of Interfaith Works, a coalition of over 30 diverse faith and spiritual communities in Thurston County. I have been working in homeless services in Thurston County for 13 years, and my spouse owns 2 businesses in downtown Olympia. I'm here today on behalf of myself and my organization in support for the passing of a countywide home fund. We provide a continuum of services from outreach and advocacy to unsheltered individuals experiencing homelessness to supportive shelters with wraparound services and permanent supportive housing for highly vulnerable adults and elders with serious physical and mental health challenges. I'm here today to echo my strong support of the overwhelming majority of people you've heard from so far for the passing of a countywide home fund. In 2018, the City of Olympia passed the Olympia Home Fund, and I'm very excited to share that this fund helped leverage over $22 million to build a new 24/7 60-bed shelter on the ground floor with 65 apartments of permanent supportive housing on floors 2 through 5. This exciting development, called Unity Commons, is in strong alignment with the county 5-year plan to address homelessness and one of the first and largest increases in capacity for the Thurston County homeless response system in a very, very, very long time. This facility will meet both the emergent needs of people who are currently unsheltered, as well as provide long-term permanent housing solutions. Facilities like ours are well designed for the specific needs and are able to be tailored to meet the diverse and unique needs of people experiencing homelessness. I'm also extremely proud to welcome Unity Commons and all the residents who will live there into my own neighborhood, in which I've been a homeowner in unincorporated Thurston County for the past 6 years. Further, as was previously mentioned, the proposed tax is a sales tax, which is a fixed rate tax that everyone pays regardless of their income. This means that the people who will directly benefit from the housing built from the home fund will have paid 16 times higher a percentage of their income to the home fund than people with higher incomes. The home fund will predominantly provide affordable housing for very low and extremely low income housing, or extremely low income individuals, making less than $2,000 per month. $841 is the most current amount of monthly income that people who are permanently disabled and unable to work receive. We currently have average rates in Thurston County of nearly $1,200 per month and vacancy rates of less than 3.2%. It's vitally important to remember the cost to taxpayers of inaction. A few years back, I tracked the cost of public services that were utilized by one individual in the homeless community over the course of 1 year. She's an amazing person. I won't go into it because I'm almost out of time, but in 1 year, she racked up over $250,000 in public taxpayer money. Studies show that permanent supportive housing generally costs between $10,000 and $12,000 per year for the most vulnerable.
Your time is up. Please wrap it up.
Thank you so much. Please vote yes to pass a countywide home fund.
Thank you. Next, I have Mr. Paul Knox.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, hi, commissioners. I want to thank each of you for holding this hearing. And as you know, and you've heard so well from previous speakers and through the data, that the housing supply and cost crisis we are under right now is unprecedented in our region. And it's happening everywhere across the state, but particularly in the I-5 corridor. I really urge you to pass this home fund tax as soon as possible, and I will yield the rest of my time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have Ms. Susan Davenport.
Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak. I second Paul Knox's for affirmation for the vote to have this tax. We both serve on the Thurston Housing Land Trust Board, which is a long-term solution to the housing crisis in that we are working to provide housing and home ownership. And the home fund, we believe, over the long term will contribute to actually creating, building, making a home ownership available for cost-burdened families. I work all over the county as an in-home worker. I've worked with people living by the river in Bucota, in informal trailer parks all over the county where people are sharing electricity with extension cords and water with hoses to their fifth wheels. And so I don't want to work on the crises as much as the long-term solution that we create more housing. And I think that was also voiced by the director of the Housing Authority and others who understand that a baseline issue here is that we just don't have enough housing stock, and having a tax base that will help support actual creation of more housing is what I would hope to see by a yes vote on this tax. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Tony Wilson. Mr. Wilson, like to provide testimony?
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little off slow on the uptake, Mr. Chavez. My name is Tony Wilson. I live in unincorporated Thurston County in the Tumwater urban growth boundary, and I support the home fund tax. I want to mention that homelessness isn't a local, a state, or regional problem. It isn't even confined to our country. It's all over the world. It's impacting economies and societies and industrial nations everywhere. We're living in one of the wealthiest nations to ever have existed, and we observe our fellow citizens living in the street hungry. Many of them are veterans and have served in war on our behalf and come home and live in a tent on a riverside. Here in Washington State, our tax system is upside down and everybody knows it. That contributes to an extremely high cost of rented housing, precipitating homelessness in our state, its capital city, and our county. That's actually not our consideration today. Of note too, though, are the historical realities. When I was a younger man, our country had public housing to house those that could not afford regular housing for whatever reason. We eliminated that provision and cut taxes. Most modern industrial nations will still make that provision. In that era, we also provided mental health care to those citizens who need it, including inpatient care if appropriate for civilian and ex-military citizens alike. Most modern industrial nations still make that provision. We eliminated that and cut taxes. We also instituted the war on drugs, which has proven to be a failed concept. There are a greater percentage of American citizens addicted now than when that began. Most modern industrial nations have decriminalized activities, addictive behaviors of all kinds, and treat their addicted citizens as needed. We incarcerate them in far greater numbers than any other industrial nation. We today are considering a very small tax to be placed on the purchase of goods that our democratically elected representative government has deemed to be taxable. An exaggerated example of that tax is if I had $10,000 a month in disposable income to spend on goods that were taxable, then that would cost $10 in this tax. If I spent $3,000 a month, it would be $36 a year. Our system has failed many of our citizens for decades and will continue to do so until each of us is willing to pay for the cost of a system that supports all citizens as needed, as most industrial nations have already learned. Here, we have a chance to reaffirm our
15 seconds.
And provide our fellow citizens, including our veterans, as we should have been doing already. Thank you for considering my thoughts and this initiative.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have Ms. Tanya Hennen.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Tanya Hennen. I live on the east side of Olympia, Washington, and I'm back again. I testified a few months ago in support of the Home Fund, and it's important enough that I took time again today to be here. I just think it's so important to take care of people in our community by creating this local revenue source that will house and care for people in our community. So many people have spoken today about the importance, but one thing just not mentioned too, well, Meg Martin touched upon, this is so much more cost effective too than letting people live in horrible health conditions. So it's not only the compassionate and right thing to do, it's also a smart, effective, and cost-effective approach. And it's also a research-based approach that helps people be successful in their recovery and their medical recovery if they're living in housed situations. We're so lucky that we have a wealth of expertise in our community, especially thanks to Olympia's leading the way with the Home Fund. We've got a lot of smart nonprofits and government entities that are already poised, with what they could do with money to create housing quickly. Olympia's been successful, and I think our county could do a great job with this too. So I encourage a councilmatic vote on this and hope that we can count on y'all to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Trish Gregory.
Good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak tonight. I'm Trish Gregory. I reside at 7841 Forest Park Drive over in the Steamboat Island area. I also serve as the executive director of the Family Support Center of South Sound, where I've worked for the past 20 plus years. Most of the points that I wanted to make have been made by my colleagues that are on the call today, but I wanted to emphasize a couple pieces, and then I'll give back a little bit of my time so that we can go on to other things this evening. In Thurston County today, we have 55 families that are on our waiting list seeking a permanent supportive housing option. These are families that are chronically homeless, which means they have a permanent disability and have been homeless for at least a year, or have been homeless 4 or more times in the past 3 years. These are families that need the additional support and are waiting for this opportunity. In our community, we currently have 15 units of permanent supportive housing, and again, 55 families waiting for an opportunity. Those 55 families equate to about 195 people, which are children and their parents. I think many people have touched on the ability to leverage additional funds, and I wanted to emphasize that as well. Family Support Center was awarded $1 million through the City of Olympia Home Fund. That gift from the City of Olympia is what helped us to leverage an additional $23 million in CDBG, Home Fund, funds from Impact Capital, funds from WishFIC, from the Housing Trust Fund, and tax credits. We have 9 income sources within our project to build 62 units of housing for families with their kids. And we would not have been able to do that without the local support that really helps us to leverage that. So this countywide home fund would be a gift to our community and help us to continue to build the resources that we need to successfully end homelessness for everyone in our community. So I urge you to please vote yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Trudy Sukup. Trudy?
Hi, I hope you can hear me. I've turned my microphone on and my video on now. And like Trish said, many of the points that I wanted to make have already been made. I've also sent in written testimony on behalf of Homes First. I've submitted verbal testimony along with one of our tenants back in October. I am testifying today, though, on my own behalf. I am a resident of the City of Olympia. I live on Kempton Street in Olympia. I'm a former resident of Thurston County, and I work in the City of Lacey. And like everyone here has told you, this is a moral and a practical imperative. It's a moral imperative that we house people who need housing, regardless of our thoughts on how they may or may not deserve what they have. And I think that we spend a lot of time in our community talking about what people deserve and not enough talking about what people need. And so we need to think more about that and think more about our neighbors. And it's a practical imperative because we're already paying for unhomed people. And I personally think it would be better to pay for the homes that they can live in rather than all the services they need because they don't have a home. So thank you very much. And I also hope that we have a 100% councilmatic vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Ms. Tyra Lindquist.
Hi, my name is Tyra Lindquist, and I live on Cushman Road out in the county. And I didn't prepare any comments, but I just want to say that it's been such a privilege to listen to the folks speaking on behalf of this measure, and I too support it. And it sounds like we just have the most amazing deep bench of folks with expertise and passion for this issue, and what they need is money, and we can do this here. And I would like to see all 3 commissioners vote for this measure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, I have Mr. Walter Jorgensen.
Still clicking, but I think I got there. I assume you can hear me.
Go ahead, sir.
This is a great idea. I'm really thrilled that the county is poised to step in and consolidate the community's efforts to provide affordable housing. And I would, of course, as soon as you do something and it's like, well, maybe you could do something else. I don't mean it to sound that way, but perhaps on both sides of what we're talking about providing here, One would be a program that actually Larry Ziza brought to my attention a couple of weeks ago, and I can't remember what it's called now, but I think it was renters to owners, something that Brooklyn did apparently decades ago and Chicago just did here fairly recently. And that was to get involved in helping people become probably usually first-time homeowners. And by homes, we mean houses, of course, but also apartments. Of course, when you buy them, we call them condos, and mobile homes, whatever is appropriate as a living unit for somebody, give them the opportunity to buy that with, use the Habitat for Humanity model for part of it anyway, the interest-free loans and even sweat equity for that matter. Providing a pathway to people to create intergenerational wealth, just like so many of the rest of us have been able to do. I heard a comment about kind of a warning about supplanting. Good comment and a good point. Do watch out for the accounting on this, as well as, of course, other things. And least I forget, kudos to Olympia for leading the way. The bottom line is, again, as I started, a great idea. And considering the season, it's chilly out there, I hope you'll also help to increase the supply of shelter facilities for the homeless. That being the first step. And someone just made a comment that I think I definitely agree with, and that is that I think Utah most recently showed us how this works, is to get people sheltered and then start looking to administering to the rest of their needs. I have to say the best part of these hearings is in fact hearing from
15 seconds, sir, 15 seconds.
Fellow citizens. The comments are just great. So again, great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, and I believe is the last that I have on my list, is Miss Yana Cook.
Or Yana with a Y name.
Good evening, and thank you, commissioners. And I am not a resident of Thurston County, but I've had a business and have a business in Olympia on Kenyon Road for the last 20 plus years. And I worked in Thurston County and retired from WashDOT in Thurston County. So it's very much part of my heart. And as it has been stated by many people today, this is not, the homelessness does not know boundaries. There's no boundaries. And so I come to you and ask, and Pierce County is also considering this 1/10 of 1%, which kind of averages out to like a candy bar a month, I believe, in cost. But we have to, I also work with a homeless group that's taking care of giving people showers, clean clothes, food, and in December we'll have a doctor, a nurse, and someone with services, providing services. So I'm on the ground, I see it, I feel it, I hear them, and I know that if we have sustainable, attainable, and sustainable funding that's going to be over the long haul. Right now there's all kinds of funding through COVID and all these other sources, but this is the long term. And instead of operating with short-term gain and long-term pain, let's flip that around and let's pass this. This is the right thing to do. We have to have shelter, and a couple of the people that have been coming in for showers every week, a couple of them have gotten jobs. What means the most to them for their mental health is being able to sleep. If you cannot sleep, you go crazy. And so how can you sleep? Well, you have shelter, you have safety, and you have the ability to get your rest. And, many of the mental problems are caused from having no safe place to sleep, sleeping in the mud, being cold, etc. Everyone has expressed these concerns already tonight. But as a community business person, I hope you will reach out to these people that are our neighbors. They're our people, and do the right thing and pass this so that people can have attainable and sustainable, not affordable, but attainable and sustainable shelter and housing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So that exhausts the list that I have in front of me. If I miss anybody in this Zoom, please unmute yourself, introduce state your name, where you reside in the county. You have 3 minutes. That's it, sir.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and we really appreciate all the input. The next step, I think, for the board is to discuss what we've heard, both oral and written, in a work session upcoming, hopefully next.
Yeah, we'll schedule before the year end.
Yeah, so probably in December, first half of December is my suspicion. And then we'll go from there. Anything else from the other commissioners for today?
I
don't believe so. For me.
I have a motion, but I'm sure we have to close the hearing first.
Yeah, we have to perhaps consider moving to close the public hearing.
Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes, I would move to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer?
Aye. The motion carries. Public hearing is closed. At this point, before we adjourn, Commissioner Mejia, you have a motion.
Yeah, I would like to move for staff to prepare an ordinance for our conversation when this is next scheduled.
To prepare an ordinance to implement this tax at a future meeting?
Yes.
That I would assume that is consolidated.
Yes.
Okay, there's a motion. I will second it for purposes of discussion, as we learned at the WASAC conference, that this is something that just can be seconded for purposes of discussion. And so I guess my only hesitation with your motion is that some of the comment that I've heard, not so much today, actually we heard a few things today. We heard some suggestions about how we might collaborate with the city of Olympia, how the one of the chair of the advisory committee for Olympia is involved. I had a separate meeting with the Thurston Chamber of Commerce leadership about suggestions they had about what the ordinance might, elements that might want to be woven in that I wanted to share with the board. And so I guess my hesitation is that I would like to have a discussion with the board about what elements the ordinance might need to contain or should contain. I think we just got a letter from the city of Lacey today. I think we just got a letter from Jessica Bateman, Sam Hunt, and Lori Dolan, our legislative delegation from LD 22. I haven't had a chance to read that letter because I just saw it come in on my email while I was in other meetings this afternoon. So I guess I'm feeling like it's a little premature. I'd like us to have a work session at the earliest possible time so we could discuss what that ordinance should have in it.
Yeah, can I speak on my motion?
Yes, ma'am.
And the reason I'm asking for this, it's because, we've been kind of discussing it all along, and I would like to have something, at least, I know that it's a work in progress, and we've received a lot of letters and comments today, but I feel like we need to at least have the groundwork and give staff the direction of that, so they can start laying that groundwork. That way it's not delayed any further.
County manager, something?
I just provide a perspective. I think one of the conversations the board first needs to have, and out of respect for the perspectives the board members have, is whether you'd like to implement this 0.1% consumatic alone to the voters. I think that fundamentally that conversation needs to occur, and depending on that conversation, they're going to start working on perhaps on the next step, which is an ordinance related to this matter.
How quickly, County Manager, and I'll get to you, Commissioner Edwards, how quickly do you think we could have a follow-up on this item, looking at kind of what I know you couldn't say for sure, but I mean, I'm just looking at next week and the next week or so of board activity and how packed we are.
I just looking at this, I could probably have, because I'm looking at the calendar, your last business, formal business is Friday the 17th, where you will be considering approving the budget. And I could probably have something on the 15th of December, if that is acceptable for the board. Another opportunity will be on the 16th of December. And I could probably move things around and have something on December 1st.
I would prefer earlier. That way we can address the issues Commissioner Mejia has raised.
Okay, so let me work.
We're going to go out to mid-December, then I think it would be.
Let me work on moving things around to have something first week in December. Will that work?
If we could have a follow-up. I'm looking at Commissioner Edwards, you had a hand up.
I guess is Tom still available with us?
Yeah.
Is he still here? There he is.
Yes, sir.
I would like to see an example of what success looks like. So, I mean, we've got examples of not very successful, whether that's Seattle or San Francisco. I don't know the answer to that, exactly. I don't know which one's worse. I do think that Tacoma might have some examples of what success looks like. And I would like to be able to tell that to my constituents, that here's an example of what success looks like. And, it obviously doesn't look like Wheeler Street or downtown Olympia or downtown Seattle or downtown Portland. But do we have some examples of funding, maybe in conjunction with accountability, whether that's mental health treatment or addiction treatment possibly, that we could look at that would help us make better decisions. So, Tom, do you have any, and maybe you don't have it right, on your fingertips right now, but, and if you don't, could you take a look and see, Reno, or I don't know, somebody's have to have a success picture to explain to the public that this is what we're shooting for. Because I don't think we can say we're shooting for Seattle or Portland. So do you have anything, Tom, that you could maybe come up with, some ideas? Well, I've heard this works pretty good over here or over there.
Yeah, I would offer that we are participating in the Built for Zero Community Solutions process. And we're working with other partner jurisdictions, and they have, under the Built for Zero, there are other models of communities across the country that have achieved functional zero for specific populations. And we can share examples from some of the Built for Zero communities and the work they've been doing. I think that's something we can bring forward to the commissioners.
Okay, I mean, that, when we have our meeting, maybe the first part of December, you could bring that forward. I have to say, from my perspective, I am generally not in favor of councilmatic type action, but I am generally in favor of voters having the say in the democratic process. So we'll see where this leads. We'll have future discussions on it. The democratic process will work its way through here.
So there is a motion in a second. So you need to exercise that.
So, and I just want to go back to Commissioner Mejia. I don't have a problem with the with pulling, you know, a model, kind of a template. It sounds like Representative Dolio talked about, I think she mentioned 4 other counties that have done this, Whatcom and Jefferson. So if we could maybe have their ordinance in front of us, and then we could talk about what we might want to weave into that for the purposes of the work session. Is that an acceptable sort of element of what you're?
Yes,
okay.
That's perfect, yeah.
Yep. That's something that certainly we'll start reaching out to other counties to start having a model ordinance. That is part of the process, yes.
Well, we'll just to formalize, we've got a motion and a second. I'm going to call for the vote on that.
Commissioner Mejia.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
I don't know exactly what we're voting on.
We're voting on, yeah, it's my job to state the motion.
Okay.
The motion is to direct staff to prepare a sample ordinance for our next work session discussion.
And then at that discussion, we may or may not vote yea or nay on the implementation of their proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost certain that I'm going to want to make amendments to a template. So I would, yeah, it'll just be, I think what Commissioner Mejia is getting at is, let's advance the discussion by having something specific to look at. What would it look like if we wanted to take the next step? Let's have that in front of us so we can discuss specifics.
Yes.
And not.
If that's the way the motion reads, that we're going to move ahead with a development of an ordinance, then I'm okay with that. Okay, I'm a yay if that's the.
Yeah, that's my understanding of the motion.
Okay, and then a couple weeks from now or whenever this comes up, we'll make a final vote if we're going to be supporting a councilmatic or maybe a vote of the people. We don't know yet, right? We're not there yet, right? Okay.
Oh, Commissioner Edwards.
Yeah. Yay.
Commissioner Menzer.
Aye. Okay, so that Commissioner Mejia's motion passes. We'll have a work session hopefully next week. And we thank the public for sticking around, and with that we're adjourned.